Welcome to the lecture number 9 of subject direct taxation. Today we will be continuing module number 2, income from salaries. So as we know that in this module, income from salaries, as per VTU syllabus, we have introduction, meaning of salary, allowances, perquisites, death cum retirement benefits, deductions, income from house property, and problems on salary income. So we have already completed half portion of it under different lecture number 7 and 8. Today we will be continuing with death cum retirement benefits because there are many concepts under that. So in today's lecture, we will be revising first what we have done in the previous lecture, that is voluntary retirement compensation, retrenchment compensation, leave encashment, or you can leave encashment is also called as leave salary. We will also be seeing problems on these individually, and the next part of this lecture, we will be continuing with the remaining death cum retirement benefits, that is gratuity, uncommuted pension, commuted pension, and provident fund. So before we start, let us see what is the format in which we have to calculate salary. So we know that in order to calculate income from the head salary, these all elements are necessary. Okay. Now, in every problem, it is not necessary that all these elements have to be there, but you have to remember the format. Whatever is mentioned in the problem, accordingly, you have to just write that particular heading and write the amount in the outer column. So we have basic salary, fees, commission, bonus, which is 100% taxable. So you will take the amount in the outer column, 100%. Allowances, we have seen 3 types of allowances which are fully exempt, that you need not take in the outer column, which are partly exempt, that you need to calculate in your working note and take it in the outer column, and you have fully taxable where you have to take 100% in the outer column. Perquisites is a very big concept which we will be seeing separately in a succeeding lecture. Okay. Next is voluntary retirement compensation, retrenchment compensation, leave travel concession, leave encashment, gratuity, uncommuted pension, commuted pension, provident fund, which we will be covering today. Then comes the gross salary, and then we have to do deduction under section 16. There are 3 deductions, that is universal deduction. Whenever you calculate income from the head salary, you have a standard deduction, entertainment allowance. This deduction is only given to government employees, and professional tax or tax on profession. When you minus the gross salary from deduction, you get income from the head salary. This format is very important, students, because once you know the format, you have to just plug in the figures in the format. Okay, now let us start. So death cum retirement benefit, in our previous lecture, that is lecture number 8, we had seen what is voluntary retirement compensation, what is the taxable amount of retrenchment compensation, what is leave encashment and leave salary. Today we will be covering gratuity, uncommuted, commuted pension and provident fund. But before we start, let us individually see the problems on these 3. Students, individual problems in case of income from the head salary may not be asked, but where it is important, like gratuity, in gratuity and in case of allowances, individual problems only on allowances, only on taxable gratuity will be asked. But in case of voluntary retirement compensation, retrenchment compensation, these are not that important, but we never know if it comes in the exams. So let us first revise the provision and then we'll solve the problems. So voluntary retirement compensation we had seen in a previous class, which is exempt under section 10, 10C, and least of the following is exempt, and the remaining amount, whatever the employee is receiving, will be taxable. So what is the amount that you're going to exempt? Least of the following. In that, first, compensation received or rupees 5 lakh or 3 months salary into completed years of service, and last drawn salary into remaining months of service left. This is completed years, and this D point is number of months of service left. So you have to calculate these 4, and whichever is the minimum amount out of these 4, that will be given as an exemption. and the remaining amount will be taxable. So when I say salary, now what is the meaning of salary for the purpose of voluntary retirement compensation? Salary for this purpose means basic salary, dearness allowance, and commission if it is as a fixed percentage of turnover. Dearness allowance only if it is provided in terms of employment for retirement benefits. So this is just a revision. So I'm moving fast. Next is retrenchment compensation. This is exempt under section 10, subsection 10B. Even if you all are not able to remember the section in the exam, it is okay. I will just help you memorize the important sections. This is not that important. So it's okay if you all don't remember the section, but it will be very good if you all remember. Least of the following is exempt. Compensation actually received 5 lakh, 15 days average pay into completed years of service and part thereof in excess of 6 months. So what does this mean? If you have worked for 6 months or more, consider it as 1 full year. Next is leave encashment, which is exempt under section 10, subsection 10, AA. Okay. We know that if leave encashment is received during service and if the type of employee is government or non-government, fully taxable. So during service, if you're receiving any leave encashment or leave salary, irrespective you're government or non-government employee, it is fully taxable. But if you're receiving that amount from the employer at the time of retirement, and if you're a government employee, then fully exempt. If you're a non-government employee, then least of the following is exempt. That is, leave salary actually received, rupees 3 lakhs, 10 months salary, based on the average salary. You have to take 10 months salary immediately preceding retirement. Suppose he is retiring in the month of November. Immediately before November, 10 months you have to take an average salary of 10 months you have to take. Next, leave equivalent of cash equivalent of leave standing at the credit of the employee based on average salary of last 10 months. So whatever his leaves are remaining, based on that leaves, you have to calculate the average salary for 10 months and maximum you have to consider 30 days for every year of service. Now your salary is their average salary, and then this fourth point also has average salary. Now what is salary for the purpose of calculating leave encashment exemption? Salary is nothing but basic salary, dearness allowance only if it is provided in the terms of employment, and commission as a fixed percentage of turnover. So this is salary for the purpose of leave encashment. This we have completed the revision of the previous lecture, number 8. Now let us see problems on all this. I'll be just taking one problem because a full-fledged problem will be asked in case of income from salaries. So full-fledged problem we will be covering in detail. Okay, so allowances we had covered. Look to the right hand side, problems on voluntary retirement compensation. So let us see first the provision. Okay, we'll keep the provision as well as the problems in front of us. So what is this? Mr. Datta received voluntary retirement compensation of rupees 7 lakhs. So Datta is receiving a VRS of 7 lakh rupees. After 30 years, 4 months of service. So after he is serving for 30 years, he is receiving voluntary retirement compensation of 7 lakhs. He still has 6 years of service left. So his remaining period of service left is 6 years. At the time of voluntary retirement, he was drawing basic salary of 20,000 per month. Dearness allowance, which forms part of his employment or pay, is 5,000 per month. Compute his taxable voluntary retirement compensation, assuming he does not claim any relief under section 89. So let us see what is how do we calculate? So we know that the entire amount received in case of voluntary retirement compensation is not taxable under the head income from salaries. Only a part of it is taxable, and the remaining part is exempt under section 10, subsection 10C. So what is the taxable voluntary retirement compensation? Let us see. So what is the voluntary retirement compensation that he is receiving? 7 lakh. Less exemption under section 10, subsection 10C. So either, see, the presentation is all up to you. Either you can calculate here itself the exemption, or you can show it in the working note. So 1010C we have just seen, compensation least of the following will be exempt. So compensation received. So what is the first exemption is the least of the following? Compensation actually received. What is the compensation is actually receiving? 7 lakh. Okay. Next, what they're telling, rupees 5 lakh. This is a statutory limit. It is a universal limit. It will remain same for everyone. So statutory limit is 5 lakh rupees. Next, 3 months salary into completed years of service. So how many years is completed? 30 years, 4 months of service. So in terms of years, how many years is completed? 30 years. That is why we are multiplying it with 30. But 3 months salary. And salary for the purpose of VRC is basic, dearness and commission. Now, do we have basic here? Yes, we have basic, that is 20,000 per month. Do we have dearness? Yes, 5,000 per month. So if it is per month, we require the salary for 3 months. So 3 months salary. So that is, and commission, since nothing is mentioned, so commission is, we will take it as 0, or we will not take it since no information about commission is given in the problem. So 20,000 plus 5,000 into 3. Now, why am I multiplying into 3? Because this is per month salary and we have to calculate salary for 3 months. So, I'm multiplying into 3. And why am I multiplying into 30? Because into completed years of service. So, once you do this calculation, that is 25,000 into 3 into 30, you get 22 lakhs 50,000. Next is last drawn salary into remaining months of service left. Now, last drawn salary. Now, again, salary for the purpose of VRC is nothing but basic plus dearness and plus commission. Since nothing is given about commission, we have not taken. Now, they're just telling is last drawn salary into remaining months of service left. So last drawn salary means only you have to take 1 month's salary. You need not take salary for the 3 months. You have to take last, what is the salary he's got. So 25,000 into remaining months of service left. Now 6 years of service is left, but they want in remaining months. So 6 years, if you have to convert it into months, you have to multiply 6 into 12 months, because here the provision says remaining months and not years. So remaining months of service left. So here it is given 6 years of service left. So you're multiplying 6 by 12 to get the number of months. So 25,000 into 6 into 12, you get 18 lakhs. Now, out of these 4 amounts, which is the least amount? When I say the meaning of least means minimum. Which is the minimum amount out of all these 4? It is rupees 5 lakh. So 7 lakh minus 5 lakh, you get 2 lakh, which is taxable voluntary retirement compensation. And this 2 lakh rupees will go in the format directly in the outer column. 2 lakh rupees, it is taxable under the head income from salaries. Students, have you understood this problem on VRC? Students?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes?
Ma'am, we did not have to take 4 months of service.
No, we have to not, because they're telling completed years of service. Now, what is the meaning of completed years? Only when you complete a full year comprising of 12 months, then it is completed years of service. So that is the reason we have ignored this 4 months.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Anyone else has any doubt? We'll proceed ahead. Students, one more. Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am, if it is 30 years and 7 months, then we have to take 31 years. No?
You have to take 30 years, because for voluntary retirement compensation, nowhere it is given that in excess of 6 months you have to consider one full year. Here, in case of VRC, that is given in case of retrenchment compensation, but in case of VRC, you have to take only completed years of service.
Okay.
Okay. Now, one more thing what I want to tell you is individual problem on VRC will not come. Which provisions individual problems will come, like only asking about that particular provision, I will tell you all. Majorly on gratuity and allowances, individual problem is sure shot to come in your final examination. This why am I explaining is because in a full-fledged problem where everything will be given, they may ask you, you have to individually then calculate in your working note. So this may come in the full-fledged problem, but not individual problems on VRC will not come. That is why I'm covering only single problem. Now, can we move ahead? Okay. Let us see.
Yes, ma'am.
Retrenchment compensation is not that very important. Okay. So I have not shared the individual problem also on that because it is least asked in the exam. And even by fluke, if it is asked, the provision is here. Okay. You have to calculate accordingly. Now let us leave encashment, again very important from exam point of view. Leave salary, leave encashment, individual problems also may be asked. Very, very important again. Okay. So let us first understand the problem and let us then solve it. So Mr. Gupta retire, and leave salary is also called as leave encashment. So if in the exam they ask you leave encashment, don't get confused. Leave salary, leave encashment means the same. And I have already explained the meaning, what it stands for. So let us start with the problem. Mr. Gupta retired on 1/12/2018. Remember, students, he is retiring on 1st December 2018 after 20 years, 10 months of service, receiving leave salary of 5 lakh rupees. So he has received a leave salary of 5 lakh rupees, that too on retirement. So here you can see on retirement, if they are receiving, depending on government, non-government, we will see later. But during service, is he receiving? Then it is fully taxable and no need of calculation. Directly 100% amount you can take in the outer column. But here they have given retired. That is how we understand that it is the money is given on retirement. Other details of his salary income are basic salary is rupees 5,000 per month. Okay. This basic salary is increased by 1,000 was increased with effect from 1st April 2018. So are you understanding this? Basic salary was actually 4,000 rupees, but from effect from 1/4/2018, 1,000 rupees was increased. Next, DNS allowance is 3,000 per month, out of which only 60% is which for retirement benefits. Commission is 500 per month. Bonus is 1,000 per month. Leave availed during the service is 480 days. He was entitled to 30 days leave every year. So every year he could have taken leave of 30 days, but he has taken leave only 480 days. So up to his retirement. So let us calculate, did he take complete leaves or did he avail less leave? Let us see that later. So you are required to compute the taxable leave salary, assuming he is a government employee, number one. Number two, he is a non-government employee. So just let us quickly go through the provision. If he is receiving the money of leave salary is received at the time of retirement, and if it is a government employee, fully exempt. So in our case one, he is a government employee, assuming Mr. Gupta is government employee. Leave salary received at the time of retirement. How much is the leave salary in the problem that he is receiving? Rupees 5 lakh. And 100% exemption is given if he is a government employee. So less exemption under section 10, subsection 10 AA. It would be very good if you remember the section, because leave salary, leave encashment is very important. Please keep noting down when I say that it would be good if you remember this provision number. So entire 5 lakhs is exempt. So taxable leave salary is nil. So is this part understood if he is a government employee? Did everyone understand the first part of the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Moving ahead to the second part of the question, he is a non-government employee. Now, if he is a non-government employee, exemption is given, but not complete exemption. Partial exemption is given. Partial exemption, how you are going to calculate the amount? By taking the least of the following. So leave salary actually received 3 lakh rupees, 10 months average salary, and whatever leave is still unavailed. Unavailed means he's not yet taken that leave, that you have to multiply with the average 10 months salary, and maximum 30 days for every year of service you are supposed to consider. So let us see. And students, one more thing I just want to tell you all, this need not be an order given here. You can place it in any order. Answer should be correct. You can place 3 lakhs first and leave salary actually received second. So the order can be decided by you all. So first, he is a non-government employee. So leave salary received at the time of retirement is rupees 5 lakh, less exemption under section 10 subsection 10 AA, and for that calculation and working note is required. So I have written working note separately, and then taxable leave salary we will get. Once we minus the amount received from the exemption, we will get taxable leave salary, and this will directly go to the outer column of the while calculating income from the head. Okay, so let us calculate the exemption. Let us see the note. Exemption under section 10 subsection 10 AA is least of the following. So what is the first thing? The first thing is leave salary actually received. So leave salary received. What is the leave salary received, students? 5 lakh. So leave salary received here I have taken as 5 lakh rupees. Next, what is the provision saying? Or rupees 3 lakh. So statutory limit which is fixed for everyone, 3 lakh. Next 10 months salary immediately preceding retirement based on the average salary of last 10 months. So 10 months you're going to calculate immediately preceding retirement. He's retiring in the month of what? Wherever I'm highlighting, just pay attention there. He's retiring in the month of 1st December. So before that 10 months. So that comes November, October, September, August, July, June, May, April, March, and Feb 2018. So we have to take salary, 10 months salary of all these months. So salary of last 10 months, that is from Feb to November, divided by 10. Now why we are dividing by 10? Because we want average salary. And how do you usually calculate average? By dividing it with the respective number of months, we get the average salary. So we are dividing it by 10 in order to get average salary. Now, here in the question, what did they tell? 1000 was increased with effect from 1/4/2018. Before that, salary for the purpose of leave encashment. Salary for the purpose of leave encashment is what? Basic plus dearness plus commission as a percentage of fixed percentage of turnover. So your basic is there, dearness is there, but out of dearness only which qualifies for employment benefit, so or retirement benefit, that is only we have to take 60% of it. Commission. Now is commission based on the turnover or is it fixed? Like is it not based on turnover and it is fixed that irrespective of turnover he will get 500 per month? So commission is not based on turnover in case of this problem. So we have to ignore commission. And bonus does not form part of salary when we are calculating leave salary. So we have to just take basic salary and dearness allowance in case of this problem for calculating salary. Okay, so 5,000 into 8. Now why have I taken 5,000 into 8? Students, remember from 1/4/2018, that is from April to November, his salary was 5,000 rupees. And before that, his salary was less than 5,000 by 1,000 rupees. That is, his salary was 4,000 rupees. Because 1,000 rupees was increased with effect from 1/4/2018. That means before 1/4/2018, his salary was 4,000 rupees. Later, from 1st April, his salary is increased by 1,000 rupees and then it became 5,000. Therefore, we are taking 5,000 into 8 into 4,000 into 2. Now, why 4,000 into 2? Because in the month of March and Feb, his salary was only 4,000 rupees. From April, his salary is increased by 1,000. That is why we have taken 5,000. So, basic salary we have taken. Into plus we have is dearness allowance. Dearness allowance only if it is forming part of retirement benefit. Now, is 3,000 per month forming part of retirement benefit? No, only 60% of 3,000 is forming part of retirement benefit. Therefore, into 60% of 3,000 into 10. Now, why am I taking into 10? Because we want 10 months and this is given per month. Here we have already considered 10. 8 plus 2. This is basic salary and this is dearness allowance. So, when we multiply all this, we get salary for 10 months, but we want the average salary, so we have to divide this by 10 months. We get 66,000. So the third amount that we are getting is 66,000. Now, did you all understand this calculation of the third part of the provision, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone got it? Okay. Now, the fourth part of the provision is saying that cash equivalent of leave standing at the credit of the employee. Now, leave standing at the credit of the employee means leave that he has not taken and still that leave is balanced in his account. So, suppose if I am eligible for 30 days leave, I have taken leave only for 25 days, then remaining 5 days leave is balanced in my account or standing to the credit of my account, correct? So let us see in this problem. So first you have to write the provision heading, that is leave equivalent of leave standing at the credit of the employee based on the average salary of last 10 months and maximum 30 days per year of service, correct? Now, leave due. Leave due means leave not taken, okay, or leave standing to the credit of the employee. That is leave due, the meaning of leave. So leave allowed minus leave taken will be the leave that is remaining or leave that is standing to the credit of the employee. This is common sense, correct? So what is the number of leaves allowed? Let us first see that. 30 days leave every year and he has served for 20 years, correct? In number of years, that every year he is going to get 30 days leave, he served for 20 years. So total how many leaves in 20 years he was allowed to take? So 30 into 20 minus leave taken. Now out of these leaves that he was allowed to take, out of the 600 leaves that he was allowed to take, how many leaves did he already take? Leave availed during the entire service was 480 days. So out of 600 leaves, he has already taken the leave of 480 days. Now what is the balance leave that is remaining? Minus these two, 120 days is the leave that is remaining, correct? So now we got the leave standing at the credit of the employee. So what is the leave standing at the credit of the employee is 120 days. Now, this 120 days you have to divide by 30. Now, why divide by 30? Because maximum 30 days per year of service is to be considered, because the provision says that maximum 30 days per year of the service is to be considered. So, 120 divided by 30. Now, into on the basis of average salary of last 10 months. So, average salary of last 10 months is, we have got 66,000 divided by 10. So total amount that once we multiply this, we get rupees 26,400. Now out of 5 lakh, out of 3 lakh, out of 66,000 and 26,400, what is the least amount? What is the least amount that is going to be given as an exemption. Minimum amount out of all these four amounts is 26,400. That is why here we have written 26,400, and the taxable leave salary is, once you minus the taxable full amount from the exemption, you get the balance amount as taxable leave salary, and this will directly go to the outer column of your while calculating income from the head salary. Now, have you all understood this, students? Yes?
Ma'am,
Yeah?
ma'am, 66,000 divided by 10, ma'am.
Yes. Because see the difference you see here. Here it is average salary of last 10 months. Okay. Here it is average salary per month. And we want for last 10 months average salary. So we have divided by 10. This is average salary for 10 months. This is average salary per month. For how many months? 10 months. So you have divided by 10. Can we move ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So individually you all have understood. Now let us move ahead to the remaining part of whatever has been left under death cum retirement benefit. Okay. So today again, gratuity, commuted pension, uncommuted pension, provident fund. Okay. That is left. So let us first see the provisions, and in the next class, we will be seeing the individual problems on this. So gratuity is covered under section 10, subsection 10. Okay, very important again, students. Gratuity is very important because individual problem is almost asked in the exam. Individual as well as it is covered in the full-fledged problem also when they ask income from the head salaries. So very important. So what is gratuity? You know that gratuity is nothing but it is a payment, voluntary payment made by the employer in appreciation of services rendered by the employee. When an employee is loyal to the organization and is serving the organization for more than 5 years, so the employer usually gives him a gratuity, that is a payment for his loyalty towards the organization, for the services that he has rendered in the organization for so many number of years. Now let us see. Let us see whether this gratuity is completely exempt or whether it is partially exempt or partially taxable. So this exemption, extent of exemption depends on the category of people who are receiving it. So if this gratuity is received by the members of defense service, remember students, if the gratuity is received by the members of defense service under pension code or regulation, then whatever money the members of defense service is receiving as gratuity will be fully exempt. Fully exempt means 100% exemption. No, nothing will be taxable. Second, if it is received by the employees of central government or members of civil service or local authorities, then again it is fully exempt. So depending upon the employee category, you have to decide whether it is taxable or exempt. So number one, if it is received by members of defense service, fully exempt. If it is received by the employees of central government, members of civil service, local authorities, it is again fully exempt. Then for whom it is partially exempt, let us see. Other employees. Now when it is other employees, what do you mean by other employees? Employees which are not covered in these two. Employees which are not covered in these two. If it is some employee which is not covered in these two, then there is a limit for exemption. Now, first of all, if any other employee, when I'm telling about any other employee, it means it is not a member of defense service, he is not an employee of central government, local authority or civil service. So if any other such employee is receiving, you have to first thing see in the problem is whether that employee is covered by the gratuity payment of gratuity act, or he is not covered under the payment of gratuity act. See, many times all the organizations usually are not, some are covered, some are not covered. So first thing in the problem, you have to see whether the employee is covered under the payment of gratuity act, because for him the exemption limits are different. And if the person is not covered under the payment of gratuity act, for him the exemption limits are different. So first, if he is covered by the payment of gratuity act 1972, least of the following is exempt. Exempt under which section? 1010. Gratuity, again I'm telling you all, please remember the section for gratuity, section number 10, subsection 10. So least of the following is exempt. When I say least means minimum of these three will be given as exemption, the remaining will be taxable. So rupees 20 lakh, B, gratuity actually received, whatever is actually receiving from the company, and 15 days average salary, sorry, not average salary, 15 days salary based on last drawn salary for each completed years of service or part thereof in excess of 6 months. So now here what they're telling, as Padmaja had told that time, that if it is 7 months, then you have to take it as 1 full year. Because here specifically they have given in the provision that any service in excess of 6 months, you consider it as 1 full year. So out of these three, whatever is the least amount, it will be given as exemption for gratuity. Very, very important, students. Gratuity is very important. Now, when I say salary, what is salary for the purpose of gratuity you are going to take? You are going to take salary, only basic salary and dearness allowance. So remember, salary here, commission as a fixed percentage of turnover is not there if the employee is covered under the payment of gratuity act. Then salary for the purpose of gratuity does not include commission as a fixed percentage of turnover. It just includes basic salary and dearness allowance. And number of days in a month for this purpose shall be taken as 26. Students, all this is given in the provision. We cannot change it. You cannot say that in a month I want to consider 30 days. No, as per the provision says that you have to consider only 26 days in a month. So when they're saying 15 days salary, so 15 divided by 26, you will get the salary for 15 days. So remember this, very important. If the employee is covered under the payment of gratuity act, least of the three, 20 lakh, actual gratuity received, 15 days average salary for every completed year of service. And if it is he is serving for 6 months or more, consider it as a full year of service. What is the salary for the purpose of gratuity? If he is covered under the payment of gratuity act, it is basic plus dearness allowance. And what is the number of months you will take? 20, number of days in a month, 26 days. Next, if he is not covered by the payment of gratuity act, so least of the following is exempt. 20 lakh. Students, this limit last year was 10 lakhs. Now from this financial year, they have increased it to 20 lakh again. Actual gratuity received and half month's salary based on the last 10 months average salary immediately preceding the month of retirement or death for each completed year of service, fraction to be ignored. Fraction to be ignored means even if it is suppose 20 years, 5 months, you consider it as 20 years only. Even if it is 20 years, 7 months, you consider it as 20 years only. Because fraction means part of, like in months, if he is completed like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, ignore it. Because here specifically in provision it is given that fraction to be ignored if it is not covered under the payment of gratuity act. Now, what is the meaning of salary? Salary for the purpose of gratuity, if the employee is not covered by the payment of gratuity act, is basic salary, dearness allowance if provided in the terms of employment for retirement benefits, and commission as a fixed percentage of turnover. Remember, there is a difference between covered under the Payment of Gratuity Act and not covered under the Payment of Gratuity Act, which you will need to remember specifically, otherwise your answer may go wrong. We will be seeing multiple problems on this, students, in our next lecture. I will not be solving a single problem. Since this concept, this provision is important, I will be solving more than 4 problems on gratuity so that you will get a grip of it. So I hope you all have understood this. This is just a provision. Once we solve the problems, there will be much more clarity. So just moving ahead, gratuity we have completed. Remember, gratuity, only 3 types of employee category you have to see. If it is a member of defense or employee of central government, then fully exempt. And if any other employee, you have to just see whether covered or not covered under the Payment of Gratuity Act. If he is covered, least of these 3 will be exempt. If he is not covered, least of these 3 will be exempt. Next. Next is pension. Pension is covered under section 10, subsection 10A. Remember, gratuity is covered under section 10, subsection 10. Now, in case of pension, you know what is the meaning of pension. I need not again explain. Pension is nothing but periodical payment that is given to an employee, okay, for the services that he has rendered since so many years after his retirement. The pension is given usually for the services that he has rendered earlier. So pensions are of 2 types, commuted and uncommuted pension. Uncommuted pension, as we already know, means the pension which is receiving periodically. Okay, and commuted pension is a pension that he is receiving lump sum amount as pension, like a full amount, 5 lakh rupees is given as pension together. But uncommuted means where he is being given the pension periodically, either monthly, quarterly, half yearly, he is given. So let us see the taxability of this. Let us see. Pension, if it is commuted pension, then, and if he is a employee of central government or local authority or statutory corporation or members of civil service or defense service, then fully exempt. Similar like gratuity. So remember, if the pension is a commuted pension, okay, and if it is received by all these employees, then the pension amount that is received is fully exempt. But suppose if he is receiving uncommuted pension, then irrespective is government, non-government employee, it will be fully taxable. Now in commuted, if the employee is any other employee means exception these employees, if it is any other employee of a private company, and if that employee is also getting gratuity, you have to check whether that employee is getting gratuity or not. If the employee is in receipt of gratuity and if the employee is not in receipt of gratuity, in pension is linked with gratuity. Pension calculation, if it is any other employee who is getting commuted pension, you have to check whether he is receiving gratuity, not receiving gratuity. If he is receiving gratuity, the below amount will be exempt and the remaining amount will be taxable. And if he is not receiving any gratuity, the below amount will be exempt and the remaining balance will be taxable. So it is 1/3 into commuted pension received divided by commutation percentage into 100. So this is the exemption limit if he is in receipt of gratuity, and the balance will be taxable. And out of the commuted pension is receiving, if he is a other employee and if that employee is not receiving any gratuity, then what is the exemption you're going to give? Half into commuted pension received divided by commutation percentage into 100. Remember, receipt of gratuity 1/3, not in receipt of gratuity half will be the exemption given. And in case of uncommuted, it will be fully taxable. Students, have you understood this provision? You will better understand it when we solve actually the problems on this. So have you understood it, students? These are just the provisions. Once we practically solve in the problems, you will get a grip of it. So let us move ahead. Today we will see gratuity, pension and provident fund. Now, what is provident fund? As we know that provident fund is nothing but it is a fund in which the employees are going to contribute their certain part of their salary, and the employer also contributes certain part of the salary. So provident fund is a scheme intended to give substantial benefit to an employee at the time of his retirement. Under this scheme, a specified sum is deducted from the salary of the employee as his contribution towards the fund, so that in future, when he retires, he will have the savings, because the fund will accumulate with the interest. They'll have the savings. So interest earned thereon is also credited to the account of the employee. Thus, a provident fund. Now, what does basically you all need to understand, what does a provident fund have? Employee's contribution. Then whatever he's contributing, obviously he'll get interest on that. So interest on employee's contribution. Next, employer also will contribute, and whatever employer is contributed towards the fund of the employee, he will get interest on employer's contribution also. So 4 things will be there in the fund: the employee's contribution and his interest, employer's contribution and employer's interest on employer's contribution, and all this will be going to the SSC or to the employee. So let us see the taxability in case of provident fund. First, let us see the different types of provident fund. We have recognized provident fund, unrecognized provident fund, statutory provident fund, and public provident fund. Now, what is the meaning of recognized provident fund? See, recognized provident fund is nothing but this act. There is an act that specifies this provident fund, and it is applicable to any person who is employing 20 or more employees. So any organization who is employing more than 20 employees have to compulsory get himself registered under the Provident Fund Act 1952. Okay, so recognized provident fund is which is recognized by the government, and it is applicable only to those organizations who are employing 20 or more employees. Next is unrecognized provident fund. It is usually started by the employer, usually in an organization, okay, but it is not approved or it is not recognized by the government, okay. It is just for the benefit of the employee that the employer starts a fund. So it is not as per the, it is not going to fall under any act on, or it is not going to be recognized by the Commissioner of Income Tax. It is unrecognized, not statutory. Fund. This fund is set up under the provision of the Provident Fund Act 1925, and this fund is usually given to the employees of like the government employees, the semi-government employees, universities, and educational institutions. Okay, so only specified institutions statutory provident fund is being covered, and public provident fund, as you all know, it is not related to employment. Any member in the public, even you can contribute towards public provident fund. It is not necessary that you have to be employed in some organization in order to contribute towards public provident fund. Anyone can contribute in public provident fund. There is no relation, there is no need for having an employment, then only you can contribute. Anyone can contribute towards this fund. So even self-employed persons can contribute towards this fund. So now we need to know the tax treatment for all these funds in respect of these. Like suppose if employees contributing, whether it will be taxable, whether interest on it will be taxable or exempt, whether employees contribution will be taxable, whether interest on employees contribution will be taxable. So all these we have to see in respect of these 4 funds. So let us see. Once we do that, we will be completing with provident fund. Okay. So we know that there are 4 types of funds, that there is a recognized provident fund, unrecognized provident fund, statutory fund, and public provident fund. And we know that there is employer's contribution, there is employee's contribution, there is interest credited on that contribution. And at the time of retirement or resignation, obviously provident fund, the meaning of that is at the time of retirement, it is a savings that given to the SSC or the employee. So repayment of lump sum amount on retirement, resignation, or termination. So let us see When an employer is contributing, employer is the owner of the organization. So when the employer is contributing towards the recognized provident fund of the employee, so will it be taxable? Will it be exempt? So amount in excess of 12% of salary is taxable. Means up to 12% of salary, if the employer is contributing, then it is exempt. If he is contributing more than 12% of salary, then it will be taxable. Now, what is salary for the purpose of provident fund? Again, basic salary, dearness allowance if it qualifies for retirement benefit, and commission as a fixed percentage of turnover. Next, unrecognized provident fund. Employer's contribution will not be taxable yearly, so no taxability. In case employer is contributing in statutory provident fund, then it is fully exempt. And in case of public provident fund, employer question only doesn't come, because public provident fund is open for everyone. There is no employer-employee relationship necessary for public provident fund. Therefore, not applicable. Employer contribution will be not applicable, because your only SSC's own contribution will be involved. Next, if it is an employee's contribution and he's contributing in recognized provident fund, then he will be eligible for deduction under section 80C. If he's contributing in unrecognized provident fund, there is no taxability, but no eligible for deduction. Statutory provident fund, again eligible for deduction under 80C. And if employee is contributing to public provident fund, he is eligible for deduction under 80C. Next, whatever interest is being credited, okay, in respect in that fund, obviously if you put amount in some fund, interest will be accumulating. So if the yearly interest that is accumulating in recognized provident fund is more than 9.5% per annum, then it is taxable. That means up to 9.5%, the interest is exempt. In excess of 9.5%, if any interest is credited, then only it is taxable. Otherwise, it is exempt. Then unrecognized provident fund, whatever interest has been credited, not taxable again yearly. Whatever interest is getting credited in statutory provident fund, fully exempt. Public provident fund, whatever interest is getting credited, it is fully exempt. So no tension. Next, repayment of lump sum amount on retirement. Suppose I have been contributing from 20 years in my provident fund, and at the time of retirement, obviously I'll get the money, right? So if I'm retiring and I'm getting the money from the recognized provident fund, it is exempt subject to certain conditions. Now, what is this certain conditions? We will be seeing shortly. Next, if I'm receiving the money, lump sum money on my retirement from unrecognized provident fund, then accumulated employees contribution will not be taxable. Interest on employees contribution will be taxable as an income from other sources, and employer's contribution and his interest will be taxable as salary. So your three things will be there. First of all, my own contribution will not be taxable. The interest on my contribution will be taxable as income from other sources, and employer's contribution and interest will be taxable as salary if it is unrecognized. Because it is unrecognized, since it is not covered under any Provident Fund Act, it is not recognized by the Commissioner of Income Tax, it is not recognized, therefore there is this taxability on retirement. Suppose if I am receiving lump sum amount on retirement from statutory provident fund, fully exempt, public provident fund, fully exempt. So on retirement, if I am receiving any amount from statutory provident fund, public provident, fully exempt, and from recognized provident fund also it is exempt, but subject to certain conditions. Let us see these certain conditions. So in that condition, in that recognized provident fund, has the employee rendered continuous service of at least 5 years with the employer? So when the provident fund money and I'm receiving, suppose an employee is receiving, so under recognized provident fund, you have to check whether that particular employee has given at least 5 years of service, 5 years or more. Yes, he's given 5 years of service, and then he's receiving that amount, then it is exempt. But suppose no, he is not rendered 5 years of service, and the reason for not rendering 5 years of service, if the reason is because of his ill health, he could not continue his service, or because the employee's business discontinued, so he could not continue the service, or there was any reason where he had to leave the service because of certain reason which was not in his hands, he couldn't control, beyond the control of the employee, some personal reasons which he could not control, and hence he had to leave the service before 5 years. If all these reasons are there, yes, all no, any of these reasons are there, yes, then whatever money he is receiving from recognized provident fund will be exempt at the time of retirement. And if none of these reasons are there, then whatever amount he has received from recognized provident fund where he has served less than 5 years, okay, for any reason other than this, then the amount will be taxable. So here when I say repayment of lump sum amount on retirement received from recognized provident fund, yes, it is exempt, but subject to certain conditions. Condition is based on his 5 years service or no. More than 5 years, yeah, exempt. Less than 5 years, yes, it will be exempt, provided these three are the reasons for his termination of service. So, students, we have completed the entire death cum retirement benefit, where we saw voluntary retirement compensation, we saw retrenchment compensation, we saw leave salary, we saw provisions for gratuity, pension, which has commuted and uncommuted, and we saw provident fund. Now, in respect of all these three, we will be solving problems in the next class. So quickly, I will just show you the format. Here in the format, basic, we have completed basic salary 100%, commission 100%, bonus 100%. Allowances we have seen separately. Then just we'll keep this perquisite for aside for some time. We have seen VRC, we have seen retrenchment compensation, leave travel concession yet to be seen, we will be seeing. Leave encashment is done, gratuity is done, uncommuted pension, commuted pension, and provident fund. So out of all these, we have completed everything exception perquisites and leave travel concession. Perquisites is very lengthy. It will almost take 2 lectures. So we will be seeing in the succeeding lecture perquisites, and leave travel concession is very simple and short, which we will be covering today itself. So then we can start with the full-fledged problems. So leave travel concession, again, it is not at all important, not asked much in the exam. This is just a provision which does not have any calculation at all. So I'll just quickly read through this, see if you'll have any difficulty. Again, I'm telling, not important from exam point of view. Leave travel concession, exemption is available for 2 trips in a block of 4 calendar years. So in 4 calendar years, exemption will be given for any 2 trips. So if the journey is performed by air, exemption is amount not exceeding air economy fare by the shortest route. If the journey is performed by any other mode, in any other mode where rail service is available, exemption is amount not exceeding air conditioned first class rail fare by the shortest route to the place of destination. Suppose if it is where rail service is not available and public transport also does not exist, then exemption is amount equivalent to air conditions first class rail fares by the shortest route, as if the journey had been performed by rail. You have to consider it to be performed by rail. And B part is where the rail service is not available but public transport exists, then the exemption will be amount not exceeding the first class or deluxe class fare by the shortest route to the place of destination. So all in this case, only 2 things you'll remember, that exemption will be given which will be up to only the amount of fare that is corrected in the first class or economic class in case of air, and in case of rail it will be first class fare. That much exemption will be given, provided that is the fare for the shortest route to reach your destination. So need not remember much, only just remember exemption will be given only in respect of fare which is the first class fare. Okay, so we have completed with leave travel concession. So thank you, students. We have seen the provisions for death cum retirement benefits. In a succeeding class, we'll be seeing sums on gratuity, pension, and provident fund.